Today I'm going to be telling you some stories from my experience in elementary school, including the time that I got peer pressured into having a crush, moving into a different country, and of course the time that I made a cult worshipping a traffic cone. Please enjoy. So this all starts in first grade. Now the school that I was going to had both a kindergarten and elementary school, so I was basically going to the same school with the same people. Now there's only a handful of memorable things from first grade. One time a friend of mine was doing a word search, and me and another buddy found a word there that was bisuf. And for some reason, we loved saying this word. So we began recruiting people, and to recruit them, they would have to say the word. Another memorable part of first grade was, so the school I was at actually did from first grade to sixth grade. And my school had this system where each first grader had a older sibling who was an eighth grader. For the eighth graders to kind of teach the first graders the ropes, it's just a nice detail that I feel like every single school should do. Now again, not too much happened in second grade. A couple memorable things were that I started to become friends with this one kid who I'm still good friends with today. Massive shout out to Hapster. Now in second grade, I was doing these classes on Taekwondo, which is basically like karate. And for some reason, I just didn't like it, and neither did my friend. So what would happen is that the teacher would go out into this like patio area where everybody would be after school, and he was supposed to gather everybody who was in Taekwondo and then take them to the class. So what me and Hapster would do is that we would just go and hide. Like there's this ramp to go up to somewhere, and we would just hide like behind the ramp. Those were good times. This was also the grade where I was kind of peer pressured into having a crush. So at some point, my friend comes up to me, he goes, "Who do you like?" And I'm like, "No one." And he's like, "Nah, you're lying. You have to like somebody." And so he asked me this for a couple days, and eventually I'm like, I like this girl. It was kind of true, but not really. I think eventually I did start liking them more, but at first I was just completely making it up. But also in second grade, we had these there were like wooden boxes where you could keep all your notebooks. And I would like leave notes for her in there. It's so cringe, and I hate thinking about it, but it's something that happened. Jesus Christ, I cannot believe I'm going to post this online. Once again, I feel like in third grade, nothing too memorable happened, apart from the fact that it was going to be my last year at that school. Now, there is one moment specifically that I remember, and I have no clue why I have managed to retain this memory, but it was me and this same friend from earlier, and for some reason we were just like in conversation with some girls. Shocking, I know. And it was two girls, and one of them was the girl that I liked. Somehow, the conversation ended up with one of them asking me who I liked. And I kind of like froze up. I didn't know what to say, because obviously I couldn't admit it because she was right there. But in comes my friend to clutch it up. He was cooking that day. He goes,
"Toy juicer
liked ice cream." And that was like the end of that subject. There was one time where I got in trouble for something with a teacher, and I got sent outside along with a friend who was also doing whatever we were doing to get in trouble. And so the teacher yelled at us for a little bit. It seemed like it was just a normal experience with getting in trouble. I tried going back into the classroom, but I guess the teacher wasn't done scolding me. But instead of telling me calmly to go back, she literally just pushed me. I'm not even joking, this teacher pushed third grade me, and she didn't even get fired for it. And this wasn't even a one-time thing either. Now, I wasn't there for the second time, but apparently she pushed another kid too. She should not have been allowed to be teaching. But the only other memorable things that happened were, one time my mom took me and my brother to a Dairy Queen. And so I was there having a good time. I was eating some ice cream. And then she told us that we were moving from Mexico to the US. So then the school year was over, and there was one time where I had invited a couple of friends over, and it was like a day or two before I was actually going to be catching the flight to go to the US. And during that one little meetup, I helped my friend Hapster upload his first video to YouTube. Now it was on some sort of like Roblox parkour map, and we didn't have a screen recorder, so we just like took an iPad or something and like physically recorded the screen. But also he wanted to hide his face, so what he did is he took a bed sheet and like put it on top of him like a ghoul, like a little ghost. I'm pretty sure he's deleted the video now, but it's still a fun memory. And then after that, I moved to the United States. So 4th grade was a very interesting year for me because that was the 2019 to 2020 school year. So it already starts off absolutely insane because that was the year that I made my YouTube channel. And then I started the school year. I had to meet new people, find new friends, and that was not easy for me because I was very shy. And on the first day, I ended up being on a table with 3 kids, 2 of which I'm still good friends with today, and the other, which was technically my first friend, because that day during lunch, he just like kind of came up to me and was like, yo, do you want to be friends? And I had no other option than to accept. Then there was this one day during recess. Usually I'd be playing soccer, but this day nobody had brought a ball, so we couldn't play. And I was just wandering around when this girl came up to me, kind of just like giggled and ran back to her friends. I don't know what I thought of it, but then she like came back and said something along the lines of like, I have a crush on you. And knowing me, I probably said something really stupid like, okay. Now for me, I wasn't ready for that yet. I was still trying to figure out how things worked in the US, and I remember going home that day and just being incredibly stressed by the whole ordeal. I don't know why, but I was just like panicking. And that thing lasted like 2 weeks before they like, sometime during lunch, they just go like, oh yeah, I don't have a crush on you anymore. But the fun doesn't stop there because then there was a teacher's strike. This one lasted 2 entire weeks, which at the time was like a ridiculous amount of time to not be going to school. During like 3rd and 4th grade, I played a lot of Fortnite, and I don't remember anything about the games themselves. I just remember that I got to hang out with all my friends. There's like 3 people from my school in the US that I played with a lot, and there was a bunch of my friends in Mexico that I got to keep in touch with through Fortnite. Then there's the tragic tale of Mr. and Mrs. Ketchup. Someday during lunch, I grabbed 2 packets of ketchup and named them Mr. and Mrs. Ketchup. Later that day, we were doing a walkathon, and basically we just like walked in laps around the school to like raise money or something. And so I had Mr. and Mrs. Ketchup with me, right? And a friend of mine, Mooshcraft in fact, just grabs Mr. Ketchup, throws him onto the ground, stomps on it. And obviously being a ketchup packet, it was a tragic, bloody death. Another friend of mine got a hold of Mrs. Ketchup and just like chucked it into the playground. And now that wouldn't be too bad, but we weren't allowed to go into the playground at the time. And then later when I checked, it just wasn't there. Now this did start something in 6th grade where I would have ketchup packets and my friends would try to take them from me and throw them over a fence. But I might touch on that if I make a video on middle school stories. And then there was this, it was a small thing. Many people probably won't remember it. It was called the coronavirus. So I remember when that first happened, and I was playing Fortnite with my buddies, and there's one day where we could go to school to grab our stuff before we were told to stay at our houses. And I remember talking to my friends about if we were going to go to school or not. Because for us, it was just an option to not go because we thought it was going to be just like a small, short, you know, like a week or 2. But then, of course, the quarantine turned into a much bigger thing. But the quarantine was the cause for the best time I've had playing video games with the homies, with the bros. Because during that time, a friend of mine created a Minecraft world, and we played on that world so much during the quarantine. We actually made it into a trilogy. There's 3 of them, and there's plans to make all the way till 7. Originally the name was different, but eventually we got the name SMG, which I'm pretty sure Mooshcraft, who created the world, got it from a channel. It's either Super Mario Glitched or Super Mario Glitchless. I'll put it on screen right here, right now. And somehow we ended up with that name, and now we're on SMG3. Now there's so much to say about SMG that it could be its own separate video. So it will be. And honestly, apart from all the people who died, the pandemic was pretty chill. Because I remember that I had like a certain amount of tasks that I had to do for the day. So it's like different things on like iExcel, log into a Zoom class for like an hour. And you know, I had to like wipe down things in the house. And when I was done with that, I got to just like hop on Minecraft and start playing with my buddies. And I also remember going out with my mom and my brother to play baseball. And COVID was such a like new absurd thing. We didn't know anything about it. We literally put on like latex gloves to go to the park and play baseball with nobody apart from ourselves. And that sums up my insane first year in the US. 5th grade wasn't as cool as 4th grade because to start off, now the school had become a lot more strict in terms of online learning. And so now we had to log on to Zoom classes for what would be the entire school day. And I remember the first couple of days, I was at my uncle's house because because I was house sitting for him, and I was just watching these like Gravity Falls theory videos instead of doing my actual work. Of course, seeing as it was online learning, there isn't anything interesting really about the year. The only things that really happened during online learning were that I moved out of my grandma's house, which is this place right here where I still live today. And also, I just watched a lot of YouTube and did like almost no work during this time. There was also GoGuardian, which for those who don't know, it's this program that's installed onto computers where teachers can see what you're doing on your computer and they can close tabs and like block websites. And I didn't have my own computer at the time, so I had to use the school's Chromebooks. And the Chromebooks had GoGuardian installed on them and you could not take them off. And it was absolute hell for me because the teacher would keep closing my tabs, but I didn't want to do my work. But then we had the option to go back in person. So I went back to school as soon as possible because honestly, I was not enjoying online learning at all. And honestly, that was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because while I was there, I met two amazing friends. Now, the main reason why we became friends is because it was basically me and these other two kids in the classroom. There was also another girl who was technically from another class, but she was the only one who had came back, so she was put in our classroom. So we all kind of started to become friends, and the highlight of that year to me was when I created a cult worshipping a traffic cone. Now, one day we were out at recess. We were out on the turf. We didn't have a soccer ball. We were all tired of playing tag, and so with nothing else to do, we declared that one of these traffic cones that was on the turf was the holy cone. And so me and Bluey both just like got on our knees, started praising the cone. And then the other girl joined in with us, and then the last guy kind of spent the entire recess period criticizing us for praising the cone, but then by the end of the period he ended up joining in with us. But this wasn't just like a one-time thing. We ended up declaring another one of the cones the devil cone, and then get this, we made the Holy Cone Bible. I'm not even joking. And it wasn't even like a quick thing we typed out. No, it was this Google Doc. It had like 8 or 9 pages filled with like text and like images going deep into the lore of the Holy Cone. And we ended up creating like the chalky milk rituals because chocolate milk is peak. It was all just insane. Another memorable part of that year was that I started playing Choppy Orc, which for those who don't know, it's this platformer game. It's about an orc with an axe, and he can throw the axe, and if he jumps on the axe, it bounces. I have some video on this channel, which is a run through of the game, and overall, it is a great platformer. Eddie Nardo, the guy who made it, created a bunch of other games that are similar to it, and me and my friends were absolute sweats at Choppy Orc. We were grinding that game throughout the whole school year. So that concludes my elementary school experience. I'm definitely going to be making a video on my middle school experience too, and in a couple years, the high school experience. So subscribe for those. Alright, bye.